Before my nephew Leo's university entrance exam, my sister-in-law, Clara, cooked him a bowl of poisonous mushroom soup. She claimed that drinking it would reveal all the exam answers, making him the top scorer in the province with ease. But I knew it wasn't just some ordinary hallucinogenic mushroom. It was the death cap, the king of poisonous mushrooms in China, with the highest fatality rate. I destroyed those mushrooms, saving my nephew's life. As a result, after the exam, he only scored just over 300 points, barely enough for a vocational college. After graduation, he had a low-paying job and an extremely difficult life. Clara would say, if you hadn't ruined things that day, he could have been the top scorer by now. He wouldn't have had to suffer like this. Hearing this, my nephew, filled with rage, stabbed me to death. I opened my eyes and found myself back to the moment. My sister-in-law brought the poisonous mushrooms home. Look what I brought back, Clara, carrying a basket on her back, announced loudly, bragging as soon as she arrived. My mother hurried over, and seeing what was in the basket, she exclaimed in surprise, "Mushrooms? Leo has his university exam tomorrow, and you have time to go pick mushrooms." Clara, looking mysterious, said, "These aren't ordinary mushrooms, they're poisonous mushrooms. I plan to cook mushroom soup for Leo to drink tomorrow morning." My mother panicked. "Poisonous mushrooms? Are you crazy? He has his exam tomorrow. Do you want to kill him? He's your own son." Leo was my mother's eldest grandson, the apple of her eye. She would never allow anyone to harm him, not even his own mother. Clara laughed. "Precisely because he has his exam tomorrow, I want him to eat them. You don't know, Mom, these are a type of hallucinogenic mushroom. Someone online said that if you eat them before an exam, the answers appear automatically on the test, guaranteeing a perfect score. Think about it, Mom. If Leo eats these before the exam, won't he become the top scorer in the province?" Hearing Clara's words, my mother's eyes lit up. After all, my nephew's mock exam results were only around 300 points. Getting into a vocational college would be a stroke of luck. My mother had prayed day and night, fasted, and recited Buddhist sutras for a month, just hoping for good results for her grandson. If this method truly worked, she would, of course, be overjoyed. However, she was still worried. But is this really safe? It's still poisonous mushrooms. What if something happens to Leo? Clara waved her hand, completely unconcerned. "Don't worry, he's my own son. Would I really harm him? These mushrooms have very low toxicity. They only cause hallucinations and are absolutely safe. Lily, you're educated. Tell them I'm right, aren't I?" Just like in my previous life, my sister-in-law turned to ask me. Hearing her, I immediately went to inspect them. One look was all it took. These weren't hallucinogenic mushrooms at all, but the death cap, the king of poisonous mushrooms in China, with the highest fatality rate. I urgently said, "Oh my God, these are death cap mushrooms. Eating them will kill you." After Clara reluctantly agreed, I collected all the mushrooms and took them to a deserted place to dispose of them, preventing anyone from accidentally eating them and suffering even more severe consequences. The result was that my nephew scored just over 300 points on the university entrance exam, not enough for a regular university. Meanwhile, I simultaneously took the Level 2 Construction Engineer Certification exam and passed it on my first attempt. From then on, Clara began to resent me. She always believed that I had tricked her into giving me the mushrooms she had worked so hard to gather, then ate them myself to pass my exam easily. It was infuriating. I was a graduate of a prestigious 985 university. Why would I need such ridiculous cheating methods? Even if you took 10 steps back, even if they were non-lethal hallucinogenic mushrooms, they could still cause irreversible nerve damage. Risking my health just for an exam was completely unnecessary for me. Yet no matter how I explained it, Clara stubbornly clung to her suspicions. She said, "Who knows if you're telling the truth or lying? You took the mushrooms, that's real. You got your certificate, that's real. My son only got over 300 points, that's also real." I tried to ask my mother to explain for me, but to my surprise, she coldly withdrew her hand and said, "Whether you did it or not, you know. An innocent person fears nothing. If you want others to testify, you must first prove yourself." How was I supposed to prove myself? Because I hadn't taken any photos at the time, even when I found pictures of death cap mushrooms online and showed them to my sister-in-law, she adamantly insisted, "The ones I picked weren't this kind. Don't try to trick me with fake pictures." My relationship with Clara plummeted to its lowest point. Later, my nephew went to a vocational college, graduated with a meager salary, and struggled in life. Every time he complained to his mother, she would say, "If it weren't for your aunt ruining things, who knows, you might be the top scorer now. You wouldn't have to suffer like this." Because of this, my nephew hated me to the core. Later, when he was fired from another company, he angrily sought me out and stabbed me to death in a fit of rage. I had saved his life, but he took mine. Therefore, in this life, I choose to respect others' fates. I bit my lip and softly said, "You've asked the wrong person, sister. I didn't study botany. How would I know what kind of mushroom this is?" Then I fell silent, simply bowing my head to read my book, not saying another word. If I didn't speak, I wouldn't make mistakes, wouldn't be wrongly accused, and wouldn't be resented. As for whether my nephew lives or dies in this life, that's up to his fate. Clara's eyes held a hint of disdain after hearing me. Calling herself a university student, yet she knows less about mushrooms than I do. Fine, then listen to me, Mom. Tomorrow, you cook these mushrooms for Leo to eat, for him to drink the mushroom soup. My mother hesitated, wanting to push the task onto me. Or perhaps you cook it tomorrow, Lily? I'm old, I can't get up early. Of course not. Having gone through one life already, I would absolutely not take on any more wrongful blame. I feigned awkwardness. That won't do, Mom. I'm so clumsy. If I accidentally burn the mushrooms, it would be a waste of Sister's effort. She worked hard to pick these mushrooms. Clara thought my words made sense and told my mother, "Mom, you have to cook these mushrooms yourself. This is a big deal that will affect Leo's future." My mother could only nod in agreement. Clara, finally at ease, yawned and happily went into the bedroom. My mother was still worried. After Clara left, she sat down next to me. "Lily, is there anything wrong with the mushrooms your sister-in-law picked? These young people nowadays are so reckless. Maybe you should find someone to ask about it." Of course not. Mom, actually, I wish that kid Leo would just die already, I thought to myself. I smiled and said, "What are you worried about, Mom? Sister-in-law already said it's fine. Don't you trust her?" I deliberately spoke the last sentence a few shades louder. This trick is called shifting the blame. Hearing me, my mother flinched and glanced towards the bedroom, afraid Clara would hear and be displeased. She stammered, "Who said I don't trust her? I'm just worried about Leo." I smiled and advised, "Oh, Mom, don't worry. She dared to give Leo the mushrooms. She must be confident. Why are you worrying?" My mother didn't say anything more. The next morning at breakfast, I watched with my own eyes as Leo drank the deadly deathcap mushroom soup. After drinking it, he even smacked his lips. "What kind of delicious soup is this, Mom?" Clara smiled triumphantly. "This is success soup. Drink it and you'll be the top scorer." Leo looked at his mother in confusion. Clara explained, "There's magic in here that will help you see the answers on the exam. Just copy them down and you'll be the top scorer." Leo believed it hook, line, and sinker, joyfully saying, "Really? Then I have to drink a few more bowls." He even asked my mother to ladle him another bowl. My nephew then gulped down the soup completely. After he finished drinking, Clara looked at me and feigned regret, saying, "Oh, that's right, Lily also has an exam today, doesn't she? It's a shame Leo drank all the soup, otherwise I would have saved some for you." Although her words seemed kind, there was no sincerity in her eyes. It was merely a polite formality. Of course, even if she offered it, I wouldn't dare drink it. Soup cooked by others might cost money, but her soup would cost a life. Though I thought this internally, externally I remained composed. "I'm not worthy of such a precious thing, sister. You personally picked the mushrooms. Why would I dare to compete with Leo?" Clara nodded, satisfied. "It's good that you understand." After breakfast, my mother, brother, and sister-in-law took my nephew to his university entrance exam. To pray for his good luck, my mother and Clara even wore red cheongsams, symbolizing opening paths to victory. Before they left, my mother cheerfully said, "I hope Leo scores 600 points and brings glory to the law family." I remembered how I had toiled for 3 years, exhausting myself, just to get around 600 points. Leo was always at the bottom of his class, struggling to even get over 400 points normally, yet they were dreaming of 600 points. It was comical, even more so when, after my mother spoke, Clara was displeased. She pouted and said, "600 points isn't enough. My son has to be the provincial top scorer. Don't curse my son." My nephew was no slouch either, angrily chiming in, "That's right, Grandma, I'm going to be the provincial top scorer." Only then did my mother shut her mouth. Fearing they would look for me while I was taking my exams, I kept my phone off all day. By the time I finished my last subject, it was almost evening. At that point, more than 10 hours had passed since Leo ate the death cap mushrooms, the exact time the toxins would take effect. And sure enough, as soon as I turned on my phone, I received a call from my brother, Carl. As soon as I picked up, my brother roared, "Finally, you decided to answer. Do you know what a big deal has happened at home? We've been trying to reach you forever." I calmly replied, "Brother, I've been taking exams all day. I couldn't answer my phone." My brother grew even angrier. "Exams? What exams? Your nephew completely messed up his exam, do you know that?" This afternoon, he started having non-stop diarrhea, to the point where he couldn't even finish filling out the answer sheet and had to leave the exam room. Your wife and I are going crazy here. Just as I predicted, Leo had indeed eaten death cap mushrooms, because only this type of mushroom takes more than 6 hours for the poison to manifest. I feigned surprise. He didn't finish the exam, but sister-in-law said eating those mushrooms would reveal the answers. How could Leo not finish his exam? Hearing this, my brother became even more enraged and turned to question Clara. "Didn't you say eating those mushrooms would make him the top scorer? How come now Leo didn't see any answers and ended up like this?" Clara seemed flustered. I don't know how this happened." Then, as if remembering something, she said loudly, "I know it must be because your mother didn't cook them thoroughly. She definitely didn't cook them enough." Soon, she was embroiled in an argument with my mother, harshly scolding her. My brother stood by, silent for a moment, then finally told me, "Okay, when you get back, buy some diarrhea medicine for Leo." I refused. Diarrhea is the body's mechanism for expelling toxins. If I buy medicine to stop it, it would be like preventing the toxins from getting out, making him sicker. At that point, they would surely turn around and blame me. I said, "Brother, it takes me over an hour by bus to get home. By the time I get back, Leo will probably be done for. Don't you think it's faster for you to go buy it yourself?" I said this sincerely, acting as if I was completely thinking of Leo. My brother finally lost his patience. "Fine, I'll go buy it myself." Before hanging up, he warned, "And don't go anywhere. Come home and watch your nephew." Ridiculous. Why me? Aren't his parents and grandmother there? Why force me, an aunt, to take care of him? No way. I happily went to buy an iced coffee, then leisurely strolled around the mall for a whole afternoon, waiting until enough time had passed before returning home. When I arrived home, the house was in chaos. Leo was vomiting and had diarrhea in the bathroom. My mother, brother, and sister-in-law were bickering furiously in the living room, so tense it seemed they were on the verge of a fight. My brother, eyes red with anger, turned and yelled at my sister-in-law. "What kind of random mushrooms did you pick? My son wasn't this bad. Forget being the provincial top scorer, now he might not even get into a vocational college." My sister-in-law still refused to concede. "Isn't it your mother's fault? It's all because she didn't cook the mushrooms thoroughly, otherwise they definitely would have worked." My mother said, feeling wronged. "I simmered them for 2 whole hours. How could they not be cooked?" Clara scoffed. "Who can prove that?" Of course, my mother couldn't provide any proof. At this moment, she saw me, and her eyes immediately lit up. My mother seemed to have found a savior and quickly said, "That's right, Lily can testify for me. She woke up to use the bathroom after 5 a.m. this morning, and I was already simmering the mushrooms then, wasn't I, Lily?" Like turning the wheel of feng shui, I adopted my mother's demeanor from my previous life and coldly replied, "Mom, how long did you simmer them for? You know best. An innocent person isn't afraid of suspicion. If you want others to testify, you must first prove yourself." My mother's face immediately turned ashen. Seeing this, Clara became even more smug. "What else is there to say? It's all your fault. Everything that happened to Leo is because of you." At this moment, Leo finally emerged from the bathroom, his complexion looking much better. "Mom, Dad, stop fighting. I feel better now. Can you cook me something to eat? I want noodles." Seeing this, the 3 of them felt a little relieved. They doted on Leo to the bone, and seeing him suffer like that deeply pained them. So my mother and sister-in-law hurried into the kitchen to cook noodles, afraid he would be hungry. My brother comforted Leo, saying it was okay if he didn't do well on the exam, as long as he was alive. They thought Leo had recovered, but they didn't know it was just a temporary rally, medically known as the false recovery stage. Symptoms temporarily disappear, making it seem like a recovery, leading the patient to mistakenly believe they are well. But in reality, the toxins were still relentlessly destroying Leo's liver and kidneys. When this false recovery stage ended, not even an immortal could save him. 2 days later, Leo finished his university exams. That evening, his friends invited him to a class gathering. My mother proudly said, "My son is truly smart and sociable, not like Lily. People are shy even when they go to gatherings." Where was I shy? It was because she wouldn't give me money. I still clearly remember after graduating high school, the class president invited the whole class to a celebratory dinner, which only cost 30 yuan. I begged my mother for 2 days but still didn't get the money. How was I supposed to go without money? However, I didn't plan to argue because I saw my mother's phone screen light up. It was a call from the city's People's Hospital. It seemed my golden nephew's doom was approaching. Sure enough, as soon as she answered, my mother's face immediately changed color. "What? Leo is vomiting blood? Is this the People's Hospital? We'll be right there." Clara frantically pulled my mother's arm. "Vomiting blood? How could that happen?" My mother gritted her teeth. "It's all those friends of his. They must have forced Leo to drink alcohol, that's why he's like this. If anything happens to Leo, I'll definitely sue their parents." She was already blaming others before even receiving a doctor's conclusion. All faults were never hers. My sister-in-law also said angrily, "Yes, once Leo is discharged, we'll sue them to the end and make them pay for all the medical expenses." Of course, that day would never come because Leo would never leave the hospital in this lifetime. Very quickly, we arrived at the hospital. A group of male students stood anxiously outside the emergency room. Seeing my red-eyed sister-in-law and mother approach, they stepped forward to comfort them. "Auntie, please don't be too sad." To my surprise, my sister-in-law pushed them away. "Stop pretending. I know you guys are the reason my son is in this state. I'm telling you, you'll have to compensate." The male students were stunned. "What are you talking about?" Before they could finish, my mother interrupted. "Don't think you can shirk responsibility. Today, you have to pay, whether you want to or not." At this moment, a doctor emerged from the emergency room and asked my sister-in-law, "Has the patient eaten any mushrooms these past few days?" My sister-in-law was slightly startled, not understanding why the doctor asked that, but she still nodded. "Yes, he ate some, but that was 2 or 3 days ago. It surely can't be because of that." The doctor's expression immediately became serious. He pressed on, "What did the mushrooms look like? Were there any unusual symptoms after he ate them?" My sister-in-law said indifferently, "They were just ordinary white mushrooms, not those colorful, poisonous kinds. He had a bit of diarrhea after eating them, but he recovered a few hours later. I suspect it's because he drank alcohol. I think those kids forced my son to drink, that's why he's vomiting blood." The teenagers immediately grew angry. "Forced to drink alcohol? What are you talking about? We didn't drink any alcohol at the class gathering. We only drank soft drinks." "Don't slander us." My mother was furious and scolded the children without blinking. "Only drank soft drinks and my grandson is vomiting blood. Is that even possible?" At this moment, the doctor sighed and finally spoke. There was no longer any hesitation. "The patient's current symptoms are consistent with Amanita virosa, death cap mushroom poisoning. His liver and kidney functions have been severely damaged. We can only try our best to save him, but his condition is very critical. Please sign the life-threatening notification form." My mother and sister-in-law were immediately stunned. Just moments ago, they were fiercely blaming others, and now they were instantly disoriented. "Life-threatening notification? Is it really that bad, doctor? Could there be a mistake? They were just ordinary white mushrooms." The doctor seriously cut her off. "Those were not ordinary white mushrooms, but death cap mushrooms, also known as white death cap. The fatality rate is extremely high. The patient was brought in too late. The toxins have already invaded his liver and other internal organs, causing irreversible damage. The situation is very serious. Everyone needs to be prepared." Not far away, my brother's phone dropped to the ground. His eyes red, he stood frozen like a pillar. A moment later, my brother rushed forward and slapped my sister-in-law hard, knocking her to the ground. "Didn't you say those mushrooms weren't poisonous? How did Leo end up like this? You wretched woman." Clara was dazed from the slap, one cheek blazing red with a handprint. She angrily retorted, "Why are you scolding me? How was I supposed to know those mushrooms were so poisonous? I'm not educated. Why don't you ask your sister? She's a university student. She must know what kind of mushrooms they were. She definitely deliberately harmed Leo." I wanted to roll my eyes so hard the sun would flip over. These people are truly like leeches. I had clearly removed myself from everything, yet they still wanted to blame me. My brother turned and glared at me. Lily, why didn't you stop your nephew when he was about to eat it? Did you just stand there and watch him eat that bowl of poisonous mushroom soup? While it was true, how could I admit it? I immediately denied it. Brother, that's not right. Sister-in-law picked the mushrooms, and Mom cooked the soup. How could I have harmed Leo? Besides, it's true I graduated from university, but I studied social sciences. I didn't study anything about plants. Sister-in-law kept insisting the mushrooms weren't poisonous and even gave Leo 2 full bowls. How could I not trust her? No one would think she would joke with her own son's life. With a few sentences, I successfully kicked the pot of blame back to my sister-in-law. My brother glared at Clara again, gritting his teeth. You'd better pray that Leo is all right. After he finished speaking, the entire hallway immediately fell silent. Clara didn't dare say another word, only shot me a look full of bitter hatred. Suddenly, a teenager hesitantly spoke up. About the advanced medical expenses for Leo. Can anyone help us pay? My brother was silent. My sister-in-law said nothing. My mother was also silent. There was only one thing, all three of them looked at me, a very familiar scene. In my previous life, whenever Leo had trouble, my sister-in-law would say it was because I didn't let him drink that mushroom soup, which was why he ended up like this. Then they would use morality to pressure me into paying for his medical bills, tuition, and living expenses, all under various pretexts. If I didn't pay, they would badmouth me everywhere, calling me heartless. I was so tired of being used. In this life, I swore not to spend another penny on them. I feigned confusion. Why are you looking at me? Is there something on my face? Clara motioned to my mother. My mother then said, Lily, your brother supports a family of 3, it's very hard for him. Now your nephew is in this situation, if you can help, please help them a little. If this were before, when my nephew's life was in danger, I might have helped without hesitation. But that was when I still considered them family, and that version of me had been stabbed to death by Leo long ago. Therefore, this time, I was determined not to give them a single cent. I feigned difficulty. Mom, but I'm also struggling. My sister-in-law immediately showed her dissatisfaction. What difficulties do you have? Lily, are you not going to help? When did you become so selfish? My brother and mother also looked at me with displeased eyes, as if I owed them, rather than them asking me for money. It was the same in my previous life. Whenever Leo got into trouble, my sister-in-law would say it was because I didn't let him drink that mushroom soup, which was why he ended up like that. Then she would use morality to pressure me to spend my money and effort on Leo's tuition and living expenses. They always used this reason or that to make me pay. If I didn't pay, I would be scolded everywhere as heartless. But not now. I feigned poverty. I want to help too, but I really don't have any money left. I took time off work to study for exams, and buying courses and materials all cost money. The money I saved up before is all gone. At this point, my sister-in-law spoke up, her tone very sharp. Then go borrow money, borrow from apps, credit cards, online, whatever. You're Leo's aunt. What's wrong with borrowing a little money for him? Her audacity was truly astounding, but I didn't get angry. Instead, I nodded in agreement. You're right, sister. I really should borrow money for Leo. Clara's eyes lit up and she quickly said, then hurry up and borrow it. I sighed, but I've already borrowed a lot. I've borrowed tens of thousands of yuan to study for exams. Now there's no platform that will lend to me anymore. How about this? You help me pay off the debts I still owe, and once my credit score improves, I'll immediately go borrow money to pay Leo's hospital bills. What do you think, sister? To increase credibility, I even pulled out several screenshots of debts from financial apps that I had prepared in advance. See, I owe 13,000 yuan here. Can you help me pay this off first, sister? It's due soon. As soon as she heard she had to spend money, Clara's face darkened and she turned away, showing her displeasure. Why should I pay your debts? I feigned surprise. Oh, but you're my sister-in-law, my brother's wife. What's wrong with helping me pay a little money? Don't you want to help? When did you become so selfish? Seeing that Clara was running out of arguments, my brother quickly stepped in to mediate. Okay, if Lily is truly having difficulties, then my wife and I will take care of Leo's treatment costs. Don't make things difficult for her anymore. After saying this, he transferred the hospital deposit to those students, sounding like he was getting me out of trouble. But I understood very well that he was just afraid I would use my debts as an excuse to cling to him. After all, compared to the tens of thousands of yuan I claimed to owe, Leo's hospital bill was just pocket change. It was truly ridiculous. When they wanted money from me, they'd pull out family ties to coerce me. but when I needed their help, they immediately wanted to cut ties. How ironic. That day, I used the excuse of needing to work to pay off my debts, left home, and returned to the provincial capital city, back to my old job. Yes, in reality, I had a stable job. I had just pretended to quit earlier to focus on studying for exams, specifically to escape my mother constantly nagging me for money to send to my brother. And in truth, I wasn't short on money. I had a high salary and had also worked part-time as an academic KOL during my study period, accumulating nearly 1 million yuan. I simply didn't want to spend money on them. Looking back now, that decision was truly brilliant. Otherwise, I don't know how much they would have bled me dry by now. My only mistake in my previous life was returning home to live during the exam period. Then, when my sister-in-law intended to give my nephew the poisonous mushrooms, I, out of kindness, intervened. Fortunately, fate gave me a chance to start over. This time, I chose to respect others' fates, and because of that, my life returned to its original trajectory. Leo remained in the ICU for 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days later, my mother called in tears. "Lily, come to the hospital quickly. Your nephew isn't doing well." If he wasn't doing well, why call me? They used to cling to me for money, but now I had played the part of a debtor too well. Why would they still cling to me? Something unusual was definitely going on. I cautiously probed. "Mom, I can't come back. I'm drowning in debt right now. If I ask for time off, my salary will be docked." My mother then said, "It's okay. If you're short on money, I'll tell your brother to pay for you as long as you come back." If I had only been slightly suspicious before, now I was almost certain. They wanted me to come back, and they definitely had an agenda. My brother and mother had always only known how to demand money from me. They had never been willing to spend anything on me. Moreover, Leo was still in the ICU. Who knew how much his treatment costs were already? How could they possibly afford to pay my debts at this moment? I opened my mouth and said, "All right, my total debt is 86,300 yuan. Plus the plane ticket home, just transfer me 87,000 yuan and that will be fine. After all, you said you'd help me pay off my debts. So show your sincerity first." Sure enough, as soon as I finished speaking, my mother immediately became furious. "The family has no money to transfer to you right now. Your nephew is still in the hospital. All you think about is money. Don't you feel any pain for your nephew at all?" "Oh, so they didn't have money?" I laughed coldly. "So you don't have money to transfer now, but if I come back, you will. Are you planning to extract money from me? Let me guess. Do you want me to sell my organs for his treatment or sell me off for a dowry? It seems I've guessed correctly." My mother stammered, speechless. A moment later, my brother grabbed the phone, feigning civility. "Little sister, that's too harsh to say. Sell what? Mom and I are just finding you a good match. The man is mature, stable, honest, and simple. He's prepared a dowry of 500,000 yuan for you. With that money, you can pay off your debts, and we can cover Leo's hospital expenses. 2 birds with 1 stone, a good match and a good person." Mature, stable, honest, simple meant someone at least 15 to 20 years older than me, dull, stagnant, perhaps even foolish. I didn't believe a single word my brother said. I scoffed. "Oh, is that man so wonderful?" My brother thought I was convinced and happily said, "Yes, yes, many girls are lining up to marry him." I curled my lips and said, "Then let sister-in-law marry him. She can pay off my debts, cover Leo's hospital fees, and save 1 mouth to feed in the family. That's 3 birds with 1 stone, brother." My sister-in-law exploded on the spot. You, why should I marry that crippled old man over 50 years old at the end of the village? Lily, I've never seen anyone with a venomous tongue like yours." This was what they called mature, stable, simple. It was truly hilarious to death. I feigned innocence. "Brother, how can you bear to let sister-in-law jump into a fiery pit, but also bear to let your own sister jump into one? You're too cruel." My brother yelled. "Lily, that's enough. Take your anger out on me if you must. Why are you insulting your sister-in-law?" "Oh, so if sister-in-law marries him, it's an insult. Fine, I won't insult sister-in-law anymore. I'll insult him then. What do you think, brother? If sister-in-law doesn't want to marry him, then you marry him. He's an old bachelor anyway. You could offer your own backside in exchange, and he might reluctantly agree." When I cursed my sister-in-law, my mother still found it entertaining. But when I cursed my brother, she immediately became enraged. "Lily, how are you talking to your brother? Your brother is the head of the family. How can you say such things?" "Oh, I can't curse my brother. Then I'll curse my mother. After all, if they were willing to sell me, why should I still consider them family? I feigned surprise and said, "Oh, I almost forgot about you, Mom. If brother can't marry him, then you marry him. You and he are about the same age. If you go serve him, he'll definitely agree immediately. That way, brother and sister-in-law can still be together. Leo and I both get our debts paid, and the family even reduces one mouth to feed. Mom also finds a companion. One arrow, many targets." With just a few sentences, I drove all three of them mad with anger. Later, I found out both my hypotheses were correct. When they called me, Leo was suffering from severe mushroom poisoning, causing acute liver failure. A liver transplant was his last hope of survival. They called me back not only to marry me off for a dowry, but also to harvest my liver for Leo's transplant. The dowry was precisely the cost of the liver transplant. In other words, they wanted both me and my organs. They spared nothing. Fortunately, I saw through their scheme and decisively refused. Otherwise, even crying out to heaven would have been useless. I was no lifesaver. Less than a few days later, Leo died. Multiple organ failure, liver failure leading to hepatic encephalopathy, he died an extremely painful death. After Leo died, my brother went mad. At the hospital, he slapped Clara more than a dozen times. As he beat her, he screamed, "Are you happy now? Leo is dead, are you satisfied? It's all because you believed in those ridiculous remedies. What kind of poisonous mushroom soup did you give him? Now look, not only did he not get into university, but now he doesn't even have his life. Are you satisfied yet?" My sister-in-law clutched her cheek, eyes red, and said, "I didn't know those mushrooms were so poisonous. Leo was my son too, he's dead, and I'm more heartbroken than anyone." My mother also rushed in to intervene. "Son, don't hit her anymore. Clara, she didn't do it on purpose." It was truly laughable. In my previous life, when my brother and I had conflicts, he never once stood up for me, yet now he was defending someone not even related to him by blood. Ironically, my sister-in-law wasn't grateful in the slightest. Instead, she vented her anger on my brother. "Shut up. If you had stopped me from the beginning, Leo wouldn't have ended up like this. And besides, it's because you and your daughter don't get along that she didn't dare to come home. My son's death is all your fault, you're so good." I, who had carried all the burdens in my previous life, had just withdrawn, and now it was my mother's turn to become the scapegoat. She finally got to experience the feeling of being wrongly accused that I had endured. My brother, after hearing Clara's words, found them reasonable and began to look at my mother with hatred, as if she were the enemy who killed his son. Because everything happened in public, it was all filmed by onlookers and posted online, causing a strong reaction. Netizens said, "Rumors can kill people. Don't pick wild mushrooms by the roadside without knowing what they are. One poisonous mushroom meal can destroy an entire family." Everyone expressed regret, but I just wanted to roll on the floor laughing. What's funnier than dogs biting dogs? Moreover, Leo used his life to warn society about the toxicity of the death cap mushroom, preventing many others from suffering the same fate as him. In that sense, his death was somewhat meaningful. Leo was dead, but the debts he left behind remained. My sister-in-law was unemployed, my brother had a low salary, and my mother's pension was only enough for basic expenses. Those hundreds of thousands of yuan in debt, who knew when they would ever be able to pay them off? And so, they remembered me. In front of the media, they began to lament their misfortunes. They claimed I had instigated my sister-in-law to believe that eating mushrooms would make Leo the top scorer in the province. They claimed I had the financial means, but refused to pay for hospital expenses. They even said I was the one who decided to stop his treatment. I understood clearly that they were trying to smear my name to gain attention and sympathy from netizens, hoping for donations. But I knew they were only bringing trouble upon themselves. Due to the nature of my job, all my calls were recorded. At first, I thought my revenge wasn't complete, but I didn't expect them to hand me the evidence on a silver platter. I edited the audio recordings, added proof of the money transfers I had sent them over the years, created a complete video, and then contacted the largest local media outlet to broadcast it. Their words already had many loopholes and weren't easily believed. Now that I released the video, they were utterly crushed and couldn't lift their heads. To cure their grandson, they tried to sell their daughter, even planning to harvest her internal organs. My mother's reputation was shattered. My brother and sister-in-law were branded as ungrateful and shameless. The most tragic was Leo. Just the day before, he was mourned, but the next day, he became the laughingstock of the world, unable to rest even in death. Having exposed all their truths, they once again hated me to the bone. All three traveled from the countryside to the provincial capital, trying every means to find my workplace, wanting their revenge. It was then they discovered I had never been unemployed and that my debt story was a fabrication. Unfortunately, they no longer had the opportunity to confront me directly. Because just before they found me, I had signed up for a project to support Africa, embarking on aid and construction work on the Dark Continent initiated by my country. At that time, I was already on a flight to Africa. All their schemes ultimately amounted to nothing, a futile waste of effort. The next time I heard about them was 2 years later. To pay off their debts, the three of them were tormented to the point of living a life worse than death. Furthermore, because I had exposed my mother's attempt to sell her daughter, my brother and sister-in-law also faced criticism. Their reputation was so bad it was beyond salvage, shunned, and despised by friends and relatives. At the same time, my brother was fired from his company. After that, both husband and wife had to rely on my mother's meager pension. Every time my brother thought of Leo's death, he was filled with extreme pain, often using alcohol to numb his nerves and dispel the torment. But once he got drunk, he would beat his wife. Every time, my sister-in-law was beaten until her face was bruised. My mother initially pretended to intervene, but after being repeatedly mocked by my sister-in-law, she stopped bothering and even added fuel to the fire. Finally, my sister-in-law couldn't take it anymore. After one beating, taking advantage of my brother's sleep, she tied him to the bed, gagged him with cloth, and used a hammer to paralyze half of his body. Afterward, my sister-in-law was arrested and imprisoned, while my brother had to live his life fully conscious but paralyzed in bed. My mother was left with the responsibility of caring for my brother, day in and day out, tending to his eating, hygiene, and sleep. For the rest of her life, she lived in exhaustion and regret, and that was the fate they deserved. If in my previous life I hadn't intervened, hadn't saved them from that tragedy, then the outcome of that life should have been just like this one. I had saved the lives of all four of them, but what I got in return was their resentment. Therefore, in this life, I chose to stand by and watch them bring about their own end. No intervention, no rescue. They finally reaped what they sowed. I once thought that upon hearing this outcome, I would feel refreshed and gloat, having taken my revenge. But no, I felt very calm. Perhaps it was because I no longer cared about them in the slightest. I had long since let go of the past. They were just history to me. I no longer cared if they were suffering or not. I only focused on my current work, whether I was doing it well, whether I was bringing glory to my country. Unconsciously, I had overcome all internal barriers and started a new life. Music,